Joining us now to tell us all those answers and more, ladies and gentlemen, college football pundit on ESPN, analyst and expert, Heather Dinich.
Yeah, Heather.
How are you, Heather?
Thank you. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. We chit-chatted at the beginning of the show about how every time you come on our show, it is, hey, you move the needle, Heather. We want to thank you. We want to thank you for that. Legit. You stir a lot of conversations, and it helps me out a lot because I get a lot of people's perspective, from different places. What have we learned, or what do you think we're going to learn from tonight's college football playoff rankings? Do we think strength of schedule is going to matter more? Do we think football judgment's going to matter? Do we think wins, losses? What do you think tonight is going to indicate to the entire college football world, Heather?
Well, I think it will indicate just how seriously the selection committee is going to take 3-loss SEC teams. How far is Alabama down in the rankings after losing in brutal fashion to Oklahoma? But at the same time, you've got an Indiana team that could be ranked ahead of them that doesn't have any wins against any ranked opponents and came up woefully short in its only chance this whole season to impress the college football playoff selection committee. So that's a combination of eye test versus resume, and we'll see how they blend that together between the Alabama and Indianas of it all.
Okay, so Alabama and Indiana, obviously a focal point for this evening. I think a fascinating thing is you can't project the conference champions, obviously, but you even mentioned it in one of your tweets. If Texas A&M beats Texas this upcoming weekend, they're in the conference championship against Georgia. So all of a sudden now the loser of the SEC championship game is definitely going to have 3 losses. Are they both going to get in? We would assume yes if you make it to the SEC championship with how the College Football Playoff Committee has put a stress on conference championships. Like, hey, we want you to win conference championships. You'll get a bye. You get obviously a higher seed if you win a championship, even if you don't have it in our tournament. What do you think the thoughts are on that situation brewing? And what if Texas loses to Texas A&M next week? They don't really have any big-time wins on their schedule. I love Sark. I love the roster. Mm-hmm. I love everything like that. But their schedule is going to be at a point where lose to Georgia, lose to Texas A&M, and then what? Nothing really else. So that game has massive implications, I think, for precedent for the college football playoff, Heather.
Massive implications. But, people are losing their minds about the possibility that a 3-loss SEC team can get into the college football playoff. But just step back for a second. I'm going to give you 3 very realistic scenarios as to how that can happen. And you mentioned the first. Georgia loses to Texas in the SEC championship game. They're a 3-loss team. I think they're in. Why? Because the selection committee is going to talk around the table and say this team has a regular season win against the SEC champs. That matters in that room, just like it would if Ohio State and Oregon, assuming they play in the Big Ten Conference Championship game, and Oregon loses to Ohio State. They say, well, they're in. They have a win against the Big Ten champs. So there's that. If Texas A&M, by some miracle, wins the SEC, there's a 3-loss SEC champ that's in there. And the third realistic scenario is Alabama is not completely out of the mix, which goes back to the first part of our conversation. All it takes is one upset, like Notre Dame losing to USC, gasp, and Alabama's back in the conversation if they're not already in it tonight.
Dropping gasp into the line was fantastic there, because that would be a big old gasp.
Big time.
I mean, that would be a big gasp if that was to take place. How about Indiana-Purdue? Obviously, we know Indiana's going to take care of Purdue.
Hell yeah.
Heather.
I got you.
Hey, that's scary. That is a scary thing in this state, knowing that if Purdue wins this game, it does not matter. Nothing else matters.
30-point favorites.
From the 29, I think, it's 29 and a half or something like that. Purdue fans would be A-okay with their second win of the season only being, and then just roll right into basketball season.
That's right, no doubt.
And then how we get, that is a scary situation for the Indiana Hoosiers fresh off of this. Hopefully they bounce back in a massive way, but that is no cakewalk, depending upon how you look at Purdue. Now, let's talk about another conference that could potentially be dancing with a couple partners. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Heather, we just talked about the SEC title game and the implications that has. Now, what about the ACC title game? Let's assume, I saw your projected bracket for tonight, and SMU and Miami are both in. Let's assume they take care of business this weekend, so they would both probably still be in before going to the ACC title game. In that situation, you can't punish the loser of the ACC title game, right, between Miami and SMU. Would they still both be in, or do you think the loser of the ACC title game could be out?
As long as those two teams are in the top 10 tonight, which I think they have a good chance to be, I think the chances increase significantly of the ACC runner-up continuing to be in. But I will say this. On Saturday, watch the Georgia Tech game because that's a common opponent with Miami. And Miami's loss is to Georgia Tech, and the committee considers common opponents. If Georgia absolutely steamrolls Georgia Tech somehow, that would give the committee a window to at least separate those teams even further and drop Miami down further. I'm not sure how that could impact that discussion if Miami were the loser of the ACC championship game.
Obviously, anytime you provide people with reasons to leave you out, that opens the door for everybody else. The ACC was pumped to see what happened in the SEC, I assume. In the Big Ten, Indiana was very happy to see what happened in the SEC this past weekend, right? We're all agreeing on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when that game between Indiana and Ohio State ended, my bracket projection had Indiana out.
Yeah.
Out. Yeah. And then Alabama and Ole Miss lost, and I put them back in. And then I'm watching quadruple overtime, and I've got the Aggies in if they were to win that game. So, yeah, everything is hanging on and watching these other results, and it's amazing how it's all tied together.
So that quadruple overtime game we're watching on ESPN, that F1 announcement down there in highlighted yellow.
Needed it.
Man.
Needed it.
Different color, though. Yeah. I thought there was a flag on every play. I'm watching the play, then I see the yellow in the corner. That was, hey, they say Jordan-Hare is a haunted place.
Mm-hmm.
Saban said that. Saban said that at dinner. He was like, we're up 7-0. 5 times we get to the red zone or the 10-yard line. We don't score a point. Tell me how that happens. Then he thinks that a ghost potentially, I haven't asked him, but I would assume he would say a ghost is the one that batted that ball out of his hands on that 2-point try. That's basically what he said. We had a block kick, a missed kick. How's that both happen in the same game? I don't know. And then interception, turnover. He was like, that place is impossible to play down there. Obviously, Alabama, Auburn, different story because of the Iron Bowl or whatever the case. But like, if old buddy can get it going down there in Auburn, I think that is like considered, the GOAT says, that's a place I don't want to play any football. Mike Elko is going to be saying forever, that's a place I don't want to play football. Why isn't Auburn?
That's a good question.
Why is it,
They always say their boosters are very, very, they got their hands on a lot of things in there. It makes it hard.
They got basketball going
They said that at Texas, too, for a long time, didn't they? They said that at Texas as well for a long time.
Auburn is a tough place to coach because there's a lot of cooks who want to be in the kitchen there, for sure.
Okay. All right, so thank you for the insight.
That stinks.
All right, is Tim Apple one of them? Isn't Tim Cook?
Yeah, he's an alum.
He's a War Eagle guy.
He's probably got ideas. He needs virtual reality all day, walking around. Ty has a question for you, Heather.
Heather, based on your projections, we have a couple rematches in terms of Big Ten teams and SEC teams, but obviously they can't do much because the rankings will be what the rankings are. But do you think the committee is going to try to avoid having 2 Big Ten teams play each other in the first round and 2 SEC teams playing each other in the first round so we can get some like diverse matchups that we might not otherwise get?
No, they will not do that. They won't try to avoid any rematches. There will be no reseeding. And guys, let me tell you something. Every week I have done this for the past 13 weeks. And every single week there's not one matchup on here where I'm like, oh man, I don't want to see that game. I want Indiana and Penn State to settle it on the field. I love that matchup because of these supersized conferences and no divisions. Indiana doesn't play Penn State. They don't play Oregon. So how does that work itself out? And Tennessee would have to go to Georgia again? Listen, I'm all for it. Sign me up.
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy you are. And I appreciate that. But I don't want an extension of play-in games from the conference.
Me neither.
Now, granted, they have to respect their rankings.
Sure.
Of course.
They are how they are. I want to see a Big Ten school go to the SEC.
Yeah.
Because all the conversation about the SEC, it's different down here. And I want to see an SEC school go to the Big Ten.
I think that should be a stipulation moving forward. The higher-ranked SEC team gets the Big Ten. Yeah, exactly. And then the higher-ranked Big Ten team, an SEC school has to go travel up north.
Yeah, I think they should make that a rule.
Be sweet. That would suck for that SEC team.
I I was thinking about that.
No, because I've heard these SEC places are.
Oh, they want to go up and play in 40 degrees?
Cold.
Whoa. What about 110,000?
Yeah.
Raging Cajuns, brothers down
Different
there.
down there.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what they talk about, though.
I mean, that's what's going to make this playoff so great because we are going to get some of those matchups.
I hope.
It's not
That's what
this
we're
year,
hoping.
going
Yeah,
forward,
maybe.
for sure.
We are hoping for that. I think that's what
Well,
we're Go ahead, Heather.
I
Sorry.
was talking to Ryan Day before his game last week, and he told me it might snow for last week's game. And I was watching Steelers and Cleveland, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Give me that snow in Columbus, Ohio for first round.
With
An
SEC school coming up there.
Tennessee going up there.
Bingo. So, and hey, Tennessee even has a little chilly part, right? They got mountains down there in Tennessee, so that's all good. But that would settle the whole, because that is a loud combo right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
This is the hardest place
We
to play.
saw Saban on that set at Ohio State. He was cold. He was cold.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that's what the North says. You guys might be able to have 115,000 people all drive to one town because it's nice and warm. Come on up here when we can't drive to the stadium because it's frozen. That's the added weapon.
Do you worry, though, that teams will then say, like, well, if this wasn't a home game and there wasn't weather like this, then we would have won like George Pickens did after the Steelers lost to the Browns? And then they say, okay, well, then fine. You're right. We need to go play this at a indoor stadium somewhere close by, maybe.
Listen, I am punter, kicker, dome, everything. But in the SEC Big Ten conversation, it's always like, this is the hardest place to play. They're not taking into account, like,
The elements.
it's 5 degrees up here.
Yeah.
Getting warm, getting loose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything like that. I think that is the equalizer.
Like the Peach Bowl game we saw a couple years ago with C.J. Stroud against that Georgia team. Like, Georgia has to go to Ohio State and play that game. Like, it's a complete different ball game.
That's what I worry about, though, is that happens.
That's
It is
football,
it is a different football game, and then the committee says, "Well, you're right. You know what? We can't do these home games anymore because of that."
Oh, no, that's a part of it.
That's what I'm
That's
worried
why you
about.
lift all these weights.
I agree.
That's why you run all these
Just saying,
hills.
think how they think, maybe.
Yeah,
Coming to
13
NFL.
people, 13
Coming
people.
to NFL.
No, hey, listen, I can't wait to present that to Coach Saban. Coach Saban, I think what the North would say is, you guys might have more people and loud, and it's crazy. There's a live tiger there, but we can't have a live tiger up here. You know why?
He'll die of frostbite.
Dead. He'll be a dead tiger. Okay, let's talk about cold game. The game this weekend. Ryan Day actually came out on an Ohio State show, and he said this about the game against Michigan.
We've felt what it's like to not win this game, and it's bad. It's one of the worst things that's happened to me in my life. Quite honestly, other than losing my father and a few other things, like it's quite honestly for my family the worst thing that's happened. So we can never have that happen.
Michigan, it has made my life terrible. So yeah, this is the worst thing. So my dad passed. My family and I both. He adds family in there too, because they got experience in the neighborhood, in the community, as well as they're going out there. That win over Indiana was huge for Ryan Day at Ohio State, and obviously going into Michigan. What are your thoughts on Ryan Day as the coach of Ohio State Buckeyes, Heather?
Well, I've talked to him multiple times in his office about the pressure that comes with this game. But, I mean, he's right. He can't lose, especially this year. Everyone knows this. There's zero reason. Michigan has tried every quarterback on its roster and then some, not working. The only reason for concern in this game is how good Michigan is up front defensively, I think, and with Ohio State banged up a little bit on the offensive line, how that matchup fares. But the reality is Ohio State is better. This should not be a close game. And, Ryan Day knows this. He knows the expectations. And I said this even before going into this season, that Michigan was probably a 4-loss team. And here we are. What do they have? 5 losses now?
Jeez.
This is redemption mode here for Ryan Day.
Well, Michigan hurt a lot of people's strength of schedule because of how they've played this year. Like Indiana, Michigan would have been a good win for them, but instead it wasn't. They were able to handle that front, but it was a very, very close game. So you would assume Ohio State would be able to do that. I think it's a 21-point spread, which only adds the pressure to Ryan Day.
Yeah.
That only adds to the entire conversation, just like it was 13.5 with Indiana. It's 13.5. Ryan Day and Ohio State people were thinking of him like, yeah, you guys better win this thing by multiple scores. And they did. And he put a little foot on the gas at the end of that thing, Heather. Is that a mindset there from Ryan Day? What do you think that message was to his team?
Oh, that message was leave no doubt that we're the better team. He came on and he said that. There was absolutely a mindset. And I'm sure that deep inside, he wanted to prove that Indiana was probably not as good as its ranking until it played some more elite competition. So, yes, certainly a mindset. I expect him to bring it into the Michigan game. But what is so amazing to me is that as long as I've been covering college football here at ESPN, that has been the game. It has been one of the games, if not the game, with the biggest impact this weekend on the college football playoff. And that is not the case. This is about Ryan Day and the rivalry and all of that, right? But Texas A&M is one of the most intriguing playoff games. And so to be having that conversation and not even like really talking about Michigan is just in a way surreal given what they were a year ago.
That's why all their alums said, we're coming together to get a quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're not doing this. We aren't doing this for another year. No way in hell. This is not who we are supposed to be. Texas A&M playoff game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So we already got one down there. And I guess they don't like each other.
Hate each other.
Like a lot of the traditions from both of the schools are against each other.
Okay.
So I didn't know that
Me either.
at all. I had no idea. And I guess it used to be a great rivalry, and then they stopped it. Obviously, you go to the SEC. They're in the Big 12. But I guess like the Texas people, I guess, in the Texas A&M people, I guess there's a natural distaste
Grow up.
for each other.
Us growing up, they always played Thanksgiving night, I believe.
Big
Could
one.
be wrong, or maybe the Friday after Thanksgiving is what I remember.
They don't like each other, I guess. It's going to be electrifying down there. I hope it's not as humid as it was.
Can't be.
No way.
With how terrible it's been up here, you probably wouldn't mind a little heat.
I'll tell you what, I'm okay. Give me last Friday over. You know how cold I was
Last Friday, yeah.
You know, Ohio State, yeah.
You
Sure.
take that over.
I would take that over 100% humidity or whatever it is. 1 million times out of 1 million times. I didn't get pneumonia. Didn't kill me. I didn't get sick from it. So that's good. The shit, it drains me. I get headaches. I'm tired. I'm uncomfortable. Obviously, socks get soggy because the sweat's all running down there. So now I'm walking in soggy socks. And that's immediately getting outside. So
As soon as y'all are playing.
that's 4 seconds into life.
Yeah.
And then you got to do the rest of the day. Can't do it. I don't know how people do it.
That's how the SEC boys feel about going up north this time.
Bingo. I think it is quite a disadvantage for me to go down there and then the
Big
complete
time.
opposite. Going like when I see you wearing hoodies and shit down there in South Florida whenever we were down
That's
there.
crazy.
I was almost sick. I didn't know how you were able to handle. I honestly had no idea.
Get used to it.
I don't though. That's the thing. I think I would die if I was to live down there.
You get used to it.
You see how quick I burn too. I mean, I'm the color of that jersey within.
That's true, but
Great
you'll get
minute.
used to it. Let your pores breathe. Good for your hair, good for your skin.
That's why everybody retires down there. It's so nice. Which, once again, what an advantage
Yeah.
the cold is for the Big Ten. Nobody's talking about
Exactly.
it. All right, Heather, we appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you for joining us. Before we let you go,
Yeah.
massive name in college football.
Yeah, just brought up Texas, former national champ Mack Brown. He was relieved of his duty. Saw Pete Thamels, the authorities, tweet on that. Want to know why they did it now instead of after the season, and how coveted is that UNC job?
That is a great question as to why they did it now, especially going into the last game of the season. And I want to say a day after Mack Brown said that he wasn't going to retire.
Yeah.
So I don't have the answer to that. How coveted is that job? It's good, but it's not great.
Whoa,
Right.
Jeez. You were at a loss for words right
Yeah.
there. You were like,
Gas.
I don't know. Yeah, it was a gap.
I don't know how I'm gonna say
I don't
this.
want to. You were trying to figure out how to.
Well,
I'm trying. Listen, I'm a nice person. I don't. Harsh words don't.
Got good
easy for me,
Jordan
but-
swag.
Yeah.
Got great Jordan deal.
they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool colors.
Cool, great unis.
Yeah.
Mascot's cool.
Listen, we're not talking about basketball here. We're talking about football.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that
may.
when you're trying to compete with the recruiting of the Clemsons and Miamis of the world, and as bad as Florida State has been this year, even Florida State, there's a lot of catching up to do. It feels like to right the ship. Can you win there? Absolutely, you can. It is a great school. It's a great academic school. But there's a lot of work to do, right? So it's not like you're walking into a program that is set to compete at the top of the ACC. That's my point. There's a lot of work that has to be done.
So,
And-
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in the era of NIL, and you're competing against schools like the SEC, all of these jobs become more difficult. I can't tell you how many coaches have told me in the ACC, we put so much time and effort into these recruits, and then somebody else with more money just comes in and sweeps them out.
Come on, get stuff.
Don't be a fool.
You want a McDouble with cheese? Extra cheese? Emphasis on the cheese? That is a real deal. But what about this ruling that's coming April the 8th, I believe, of 2025 from a judge that is going to inevitably enact a salary cap? I think it's 22% of the overall net revenue of, I think it's stadium, everything that takes place. It's going to be about $21 million per school, D1 school. 16 is the expected or projected amount of millions that'll go towards the football team. That's going to be like a regulated salary cap that all D1 schools are going to have, the exact same. Do you think that potentially makes any job enticing that's in D1 if you at least have a little bit of cash to battle with? Or do you think the NIL stuff that's going to be outside of it is still going to reign supreme probably in these particular contests?
Yeah, I think until we know exactly what it looks like on paper and who's getting what, and most importantly, how you enforce this, right? Keyword enforce this, to me is one of the most interesting things that will help answer all those questions. I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend to know the answers to it, but I mean, there even athletic directors that I talked to as of like yesterday are still trying to figure it out.
Enforcing it is hilarious to think about. Yeah. Did you spend $21 million or $22 million? You tell me.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't remember. You do the audit. So who's going to run through all the books? Oh, my God. We got more problems coming. Yeah. All right. College football is awesome. We can't thank you enough for joining us, Heather.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, the hallway's been bumping. I don't know. I've seen some different meals coming down.
Lunchtime.
Yeah. I've seen a couple people just kind of moseying. And then noticing, oh no, and then walking this way. There's been quite a little show, a parade over there. Where are you at? Are you up at ESPN?
Yeah, I'm at ESPN, but the green room was crowded, so I moved out here.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. We got you a sweet snowboarder on here.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Who's that, Sean White?
Is that a Bob Ross painting too down there with those trees?
Yeah. 3D.
Or is that a picture? That's a picture?
Looks like he's coming out of the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's snowboarder.
Who is it? Do you know who it is? Is that the Flying Tomato?
I haven't done my X Games homework for the show. I'm sorry.
Thank you. College football expert, ladies and gentlemen, Heather Dinich. Thank you.
Heather.